then it will turn off. So the low pressure fuel pump's working, the high pressure fuel pump's working because it runs, but the fuel control module is the one that decides when it should inject fuel at right times. And that one is not communicating. I have got hopes.
What would you do if you owned one of the world's most expensive hypercars, spent countless hours and an unbelievable amount of money bringing it back to life, only to discover that nobody, not even the best mechanics, could figure out why it refused to run? Imagine standing in front of a machine worth millions of dollars, a car that represents the highest level of automotive engineering, and realizing that one tiny hidden problem could stop everything. It sounds like the plot of a Hollywood movie, but this was real. This was a challenge surrounding one incredible Bugatti Veyron, a car that had already survived a devastating crash, shocked the automotive world by being rebuilt from what many believed was impossible damage, and was finally expected to return to the road. But just when success seemed only a few steps away, the entire project came to a sudden halt. The engine would briefly come to life, only to shut down almost immediately, leaving behind confusion instead of answers. No warning explained the real cause. No simple repair solved the issue. Every attempt only created more questions, turning what should have been the final chapter into the beginning of an even bigger mystery. For most people, buying a Bugatti Veyron is only a dream. It is not simply another luxury car parked inside an expensive garage. It is one of the greatest engineering achievements ever created, built with incredible precision and designed to perform at a level that very few vehicles in history have ever reached. Every part inside the car works together with astonishing accuracy. Its powerful quad-turbocharged engine produces more than 1,000 horsepower, allowing the Veyron to reach speeds that once seemed impossible for a road-legal vehicle. But that incredible performance comes with extraordinary complexity. Unlike ordinary cars, where many repairs can be handled by experienced local mechanics, a Bugatti requires specialized knowledge, advanced diagnostic equipment, and years of factory experience. Every sensor, every computer module, every wire, and every mechanical component plays an important role. Even the smallest fault can confuse the entire system, making a simple problem appear much larger than it actually is. That is exactly why the situation became so frightening. If experienced specialists could not immediately identify the fault, what chance did anyone else have? What made this story even more unbelievable was the history behind this very car. Long before this mysterious breakdown, the Veyron had already become famous because of a severe accident that nearly destroyed it. Many people believed it would never drive again. Looking at the damaged vehicle, it was easy to understand why. The destruction was so extreme that most experts considered it beyond repair. Rebuilding such a rare and valuable hypercar would demand endless patience, enormous financial investment, and an incredible amount of technical skill. Yet against all expectations, the project moved forward. Piece by piece, the damaged Bugatti slowly came back together. Thousands of hours were spent repairing, replacing, measuring, testing, and carefully rebuilding nearly every section of the vehicle. The progress amazed automotive enthusiasts around the world, proving that determination and expert craftsmanship could accomplish what many had once called impossible. It felt like the hardest part of the journey was finally over. But nobody realized that rebuilding the car would actually become easier than solving the invisible problem hidden deep inside it. The closer the team came to finishing the project, the more mysterious the Veyron's behavior became. Every failed attempt to start the engine hinted that something far more complicated was waiting beneath the surface. And before long, the search for answers would grow so difficult that there was only one place left to turn: the people who had built the car themselves, Bugatti. The first reaction was simple: stay calm and start with the basics. Every experienced mechanic knows that not every problem on an expensive car is a disaster. Sometimes a loose connector, a weak battery, or a faulty sensor can cause symptoms that look much worse than they really are. That gave the team hope. After spending so much time rebuilding the Bugatti Veyron from the ground up, they believed the solution would probably be something small that had been overlooked during the final stages of assembly. With that mindset, they began checking everything once again. Every electrical connection was inspected. Every fuse was tested. Every sensor was examined. The fuel system was carefully checked to make sure the engine was receiving everything it needed. The battery voltage was measured again and again because modern hypercars depend heavily on stable electrical power. At first, everything appeared normal. Nothing seemed badly damaged. Nothing immediately explained why the engine would start for only a brief moment before shutting itself off. The situation quickly became frustrating because every successful test only removed another possible cause without bringing them any closer to the real answer. As the days passed, the investigation became much more detailed. Instead of looking only at visible parts, the team connected advanced diagnostic equipment to the car's computer systems. Modern Bugattis are filled with electronic control units that constantly monitor thousands of pieces of information. These computers watch engine timing, fuel pressure, turbocharger performance, ignition systems, sensors, temperatures, security systems, and many other components all at the same time. If even one critical system detects something unusual, the car may shut itself down to protect the engine from damage. The technicians carefully studied every fault code stored inside the computers, hoping one of them would clearly identify the problem. But the results only created more confusion. Some fault codes suggested electrical issues. Others hinted at communication problems between different control modules. A few codes disappeared after being cleared, only to return later under different conditions. It was almost as if the Bugatti itself could not decide what was wrong. Every time the team believed they had discovered the source of the failure, another diagnostic scan pointed toward an entirely different system. The investigation slowly turned into a complicated puzzle, where every answer created two new questions. Outside the workshop, the story was attracting more attention than anyone expected. Automotive fans around the world had followed the incredible rebuild from the beginning, and now they wanted to know why such an expensive project had suddenly stopped. Social media quickly filled with thousands of comments. Some viewers believed hidden crash damage was finally causing problems. Others argued that the engine control unit had failed after the accident. A few people even suggested replacing the entire engine rather than spending weeks searching for a single fault. Professional mechanics joined online discussions, offering their own ideas based on years of experience working with high-performance vehicles. Every opinion sounded believable, yet no two explanations matched. Reading through hundreds of different theories only proved one thing. The mystery was far more complicated than anyone had imagined. The team appreciated every suggestion, but they knew guessing was not a safe option. This was not an ordinary sports car, where replacement parts could easily be ordered. Every mistake could cost thousands of dollars, delay the project for weeks, or even damage rare components that were nearly impossible to replace. That meant every decision had to be based on facts rather than assumptions. Despite the growing pressure, nobody was ready to give up. The rebuild had already overcome challenges that many experts believed were impossible, and the team refused to let one hidden problem defeat months of hard work. They continued collecting data, comparing test results, reviewing service information, and carefully studying every small detail that others might ignore. Then, during one routine inspection, something unusual appeared inside the diagnostic reports. At first, it looked like another meaningless piece of information, easy to overlook among hundreds of technical readings. But the more they studied it, the stranger it became. That tiny clue did not simply point toward a faulty component. It suggested that the real problem might not be where anyone had been looking. If that unexpected clue was correct, the entire investigation would have to change direction, leading the team toward a solution that nobody inside the workshop had even considered. That unexpected clue changed the mood inside the workshop almost instantly. For days, everyone had been following the same path, checking the obvious systems and repeating tests to confirm earlier results. Now, for the first time, there was a reason to believe they had been looking in the wrong place all along. Nobody celebrated because they still had no proof, but the discovery gave the team something they had been missing for a long time: hope. Instead of replacing expensive parts based on guesses, they decided to slow down and investigate this new lead with complete attention. Every wire connected to the affected system was inspected once again. Every connector was unplugged, cleaned, and tested before being reinstalled. They checked for hidden corrosion, damaged pins, poor grounding points, and signs of moisture that could interrupt communication between different electronic modules. Modern hypercars depend on hundreds of electrical connections working perfectly together, and even one weak signal can confuse the entire network. On an ordinary vehicle, a faulty connector might trigger a warning light. On a Bugatti Veyron, it could prevent the engine from running altogether. The deeper they investigated, the more they realized how incredibly advanced the Veyron truly was. Unlike most performance cars, where many systems work independently, the Bugatti constantly allows its electronic control units to communicate with one another. The engine computer talks to the transmission. The transmission exchanges information with the stability control system. The security system verifies that everything is safe before allowing the engine to continue running. Sensors monitor temperatures, fuel pressure, oil pressure, airflow, turbocharger performance, throttle position, and dozens of other measurements every second. If one important module sends incorrect information or suddenly stops communicating, the entire vehicle may decide something is wrong and immediately shut the engine down, protect itself. That level of protection is one reason Bugatti vehicles are so reliable when maintained correctly, but also makes diagnosing unusual faults incredibly difficult. A small hidden issue can create symptoms that appear completely unrelated, sending technicians in the wrong direction for days or even weeks. As the investigation continued, the pressure outside the workshop continued growing. Thousands of automotive fans were following every update, eager to learn what had gone wrong with one of the world's most famous hypercars. Every new photo or short video shared online brought another wave of comments. Some people believed the rebuild had simply been too ambitious, and that hidden structural damage was now causing electronic failures. Others argued that rebuilding such a rare car was never a good idea because factory tolerances are almost impossible to duplicate outside Bugatti's own facilities. Some viewers remained optimistic, convinced that the team would eventually solve the mystery just as they had overcome every earlier challenge. The internet quickly became filled with debates, predictions, and technical discussions. Although many suggestions came from experienced enthusiasts, the team understood that reading opinions could never replace proper diagnostics. Every hour spent chasing random internet theories was another hour taken away from finding the real problem. The only thing that mattered now was evidence, and every new test had to move them one step closer to the truth. Even with their renewed focus, progress remained painfully slow. Some tests produced encouraging results, only for the same problem to return during the next engine start. At times it seemed as though the Veyron wanted to cooperate before changing its mind at the last second. The engine would briefly fire. Everyone in the workshop would look up with excitement, and then silence would return almost immediately as the system shut everything down again. Each failed attempt reminded them that they were dealing with one of the most sophisticated automobiles ever built. Weeks of careful work had already gone into solving this mystery, yet the finish line still seemed far away. Then another realization quietly began forming among the team. They had reached a point where experience alone might no longer be enough. They needed people who understood every bolt, every wire, every software system, and every engineering decision made during the Veyron's original design. There was only one place in the world with that level of knowledge. If they truly wanted to solve this mystery once and for all, they would have to seek help directly from the engineers who had created the Bugatti Veyron itself. Reaching out to Bugatti sounded simple when people talked about it online, but the reality was completely different. Many people imagine that owning a multi-million-dollar hypercar means you can simply make one phone call and immediately receive help from the factory. In reality, Bugatti follows an extremely careful process whenever a serious technical issue appears. These cars are among the rarest and most advanced machines ever built, and every repair is treated with incredible attention to detail. Before anyone at the factory could even begin offering advice, they needed a complete picture of the car's history. That meant gathering every piece of information collected since the mysterious problem first appeared. The team spent hours organizing diagnostic reports, fault codes, photographs, videos, engine data, service records, and detailed notes from every inspection. Nothing was considered too small to include, because sometimes the smallest detail becomes a key to solving the biggest mystery. Every failed engine start, every unusual sound, every warning message, and every strange sensor reading was carefully documented. It was a slow and demanding process, but everyone understood that the more accurate the information was, the greater the chance of finding the real cause. Once everything had been organized, the waiting began. For many people, waiting is often the hardest part of any project because there is nothing left to do except hope that the next message brings good news. Every morning started with the same question. Had Bugatti replied? Every email notification caused excitement before quickly turning into disappointment if it was unrelated. While waiting for the factory's response, the team refused to sit still. Instead, they continued performing additional inspections, checking systems that had already been examined several times before. Fresh eyes sometimes noticed details that were missed earlier, especially after days of intense work. Components were removed, inspected under better lighting, measured again, and carefully reinstalled. Every electrical connector was checked for proper contact. Every wiring route was inspected for hidden damage that could have happened during the original crash. Fuel pressure was tested again. Air intake systems were rechecked. Software versions were compared with factory specifications. Yet despite all this effort, the Veyron continued behaving exactly the same way. The engine would briefly come alive before shutting itself down, almost as if the car itself was refusing to reveal its secret. Outside the workshop, interest in the project reached an entirely new level. Automotive enthusiasts from around the world were eagerly following every update, and discussions became more intense with each passing day. Some viewers believed Bugatti would immediately identify the problem once they reviewed the diagnostic data. Others argued that the issue was probably something so rare that even the factory engineers would need time to investigate. A few people questioned whether rebuilding such an advanced hypercar outside an official Bugatti service center had created problems that could never be completely solved. At the same time, experienced mechanics shared their own stories of difficult repairs where the final solution turned out to be something surprisingly simple. Those stories reminded everyone not to jump to conclusions. Complex symptoms do not always mean a complex failure. Sometimes one damaged sensor, one faulty communication line, or one incorrectly calibrated module can confuse an entire vehicle. The challenge was discovering exactly which small detail was responsible for causing such enormous trouble. Finally, after what felt like an endless wait, the message everyone had been hoping for finally arrived. Bugatti had reviewed the information and was ready to begin helping with the investigation. The atmosphere inside the workshop changed immediately. Months of uncertainty suddenly felt a little lighter because the people who knew the Veyron better than anyone else were now involved. But the excitement quickly gave way to another surprise. Instead of sending one simple answer that explained everything, Bugatti requested even more information. They recommended additional diagnostic procedures, asked for more detailed measurements, requested new data logs, and suggested checking several systems that had received very little attention during the earlier investigation. At first, this seemed disappointing because everyone had hoped for a quick solution. But after carefully reading the factory's recommendations, the team realized something important. Bugatti's engineers were looking at the problem from a completely different angle. They were asking questions that nobody else had thought to ask. And if those questions led to the right answers, the investigation was about to take its biggest and most important turn yet. vidIQ, the factory's response did not magically solve the mystery, but it completely changed the direction of the investigation. Instead of focusing only on the symptoms, Bugatti's engineers wanted to understand exactly how every system inside the Veyron was behaving during those few seconds when the engine started and then suddenly shut itself down. That small window of time became the center of attention. Every sensor reading had to be recorded. Every signal traveling between the electronic control units had to be monitored. The team carefully connected advanced diagnostic equipment to the car and prepared to capture as much information as possible. This was no longer about replacing parts or trying random repairs. It had become a scientific investigation where every number, every graph, and every communication signal could reveal an important clue. The pressure inside the workshop was higher than ever because everyone knew that even the smallest detail could finally expose the hidden problem. When the engine started, every technician watched the computer screens instead of the car itself. Within a single second, hundreds of values changed across multiple systems before the engine shut down again. Although it happened incredibly fast, those few moments contained more information